Thank you, Madam Nehan. Thank you for your very passionate speech, and also explaining the ground situation which is currently unfolding in Afghanistan. And as rightly said by you, they have indeed announced the interim government, and we were just talking before you came online. Is that I think out of the 33 members of that interim government, 17 are listed on UN designated terrorist list. Apart from that, there is no woman in that interim government, and they have also excluded all minorities in Afghanistan. So indeed, the Taliban does not listen. So thank you for your speech. And I forgot to mention in my moderation, of course, I would like to also thank my very good friend Malez Daoud, who has put me in touch with both the ladies from Afghanistan, and without him, it wouldn't have been possible to organize this this webinar. So Malez, I know you're online. Thank you, and I hope you can come in at the question and answer session. So with that, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Dorothée Vandamme, who is, as I said in my introduction, we are very proud to have her as an EFSAS research fellow as well. She has recently commented on the situation unfolding in Afghanistan on various national channels in Belgium. She's an expert on the Pakistani military. And I know Dorothée telling me when we first met and after that as well, that people were telling her, why do you specialize on the Pakistani military? Well, this is exactly why. So Dorothée, you have the floor.
Thank you, Junaid. Indeed, I think the journalists here in Belgium just dusted out and discovered that they had some Pakistan and Afghanistan specialists in their universities. So thank you, EFSAS, for organizing this webinar and for inviting me to be a panelist. So I'll be sharing some thoughts about the Pakistani military, especially, and their sponsoring of the Taliban, but more generally the sponsoring of violent groups. What I'll be doing is discuss a little bit about the reasons why they do so, how they do support those groups, and what it could trigger, especially for them, the negative consequences that it could bring about for Pakistan, basically the short-sightedness that is happening right now in the Pakistani military. So I have a presentation that I thought would make it easier for our participants. I'm not sure how I can, share screen would be it. Just let me know if you see something or not. Not sure it's working. Well, I'll just do it without the presentation, and if I need to clear anything up, please don't hesitate to interrupt me at any point. So I want to start with that because it's a quote that reemerged lately, given the situation. A quote that was told by General Hamid Gul in 2014. He said in a televised speech, when history is written, it will be stated that the ISI defeated the Soviet Union in Afghanistan with the help of America. Then there will be another sentence, the ISI with the help of America defeated America. And Hamid Gul was director of the ISI, and he's nicknamed as the godfather of the Taliban. So I just wanted to start with that. Because it kind of paints the picture about Pakistan's involvement in Afghanistan. Usually the reasons why Pakistan supports Taliban and other insurgent groups in Afghanistan and other countries is pretty well known. Pakistan's foreign policy and very first imperative is the survival of the country, right? So everything in Pakistan is about the unfinished business of partition. And it's basically about ensuring, guaranteeing strategic equality with India making sure that India does not make Pakistan disappear or something like that. There's another reason why Pakistan has very direct interest in Afghanistan is because of the Durand Line, which was established in 1893 and which was recognized as an official international border by Afghanistan, including, it should be said, by the Taliban regime in the 90s, which is actually pretty interesting given how Pakistan supports the Afghan Taliban. So what Pakistan is trying to do is avoid encirclement. And that's basically the official narrative. And that's what everybody has in mind when we talk about Pakistan's involvement in Afghanistan. But there's another reason. The other reason is that the security establishment, especially the military establishment in Pakistan, is extremely powerful, and it benefits from the instability, it benefits from the insecurity of the situation, because instability and the perception of threat is a source of power for security establishments. If there's no enemy, why do you need a powerful army, basically? And that's the basic thinking behind it. So if you want your citizens to allow unelected military officers to rule the country, or at least to have a direct say in politics in the country, you make sure that they fear some kind of existential threat. And when people feel threatened at the most basic level with their life or with their way of life, with their integrity, they will accept almost anything. And this instability that is created and this adversity that is just being rhetorically continued and alimented through actions by the military establishment gives the military establishment its power. And there is a very specific role in that for the ISI, the Inter-Soviet Intelligence. I've read a lot about the ISI being some kind of rogue agency filled with extremists or criminal, or I don't know, there's a lot of kind of mythical imaginary around the ISI. Well, we need to realize the ISI is actually quite a professional. Most of their employees come from the military. They come from the armed forces ranks. They're very structured, they're skilled. They basically know what they do. They're a very powerful institution. Now, their interest does not align with most anybody's interest, but they know what they do, and their strategy is very well oiled. And this is a very enduring strategy in that they have been normalizing Islamist groups and political violence into mainstream politics for a long time. I'm not going to go back down the history road here, but I think we'll remember what happened during the Soviet invasion in Afghanistan, the support of the Mujahideen. And we know that during that time, Zia-ul Haq's policies actually empowered the military, but specifically the ISI. And since then, the ISI has been able to implement a policy of normalizing, using and normalizing Islamist groups to further the strategy. And that's where the Afghan Taliban enter. The support for the Afghan Taliban started right away as soon as the group formed in 1994. Sorry. Actually, there are some accounts. I think it was Sarah Chayas in her blog who recounts of testimonies about ISI officers surveying the local population and refugee camps to test the ground for support for a Taliban movement in the early 90s. Now, I don't have any personal account of that, only this account through her. What I do know is that very early there was some logistical and material support to Mullah Omar's group. And we also know that there was some support and sponsoring of the Haqqani network, who benefited from a sanctuary in North Waziristan, in particular in exchange of their operations against Indian assets and support in Afghanistan. And that has been going on for quite a while as well. So in terms of resources and in terms of support, there's some financing, equipment. There's also help for recruitment of combatants for the Afghan Taliban, training, planification and strategy, and we have witnesses account of joint direct combat by the Pakistani military to help the Afghan Taliban. And well, we all know that they offered a sanctuary for the Taliban leadership. I mean, the Quetta Shura kind of speaks for itself. And Imran Khan said a few days ago, if I remember correctly, in a televised speech, he talked about the Taliban as being normal civilians, and basically said, well, you can't identify them in refugee camps. So they ask us to identify them, but you can't when there are tens of thousands of Afghans in refugee camps. Well, okay, but that's not the whole story. When you hear about ISI observers being participants in certain meetings of the Quetta Shura or training of Taliban combatants by the Pakistani military, it's not exactly considering the Taliban as normal civilian. To me, it's a bit more than that. And we tend to think that the Pakistani military has a very strong influence over the Taliban because of all that. And in fact, it's not the case. It's very fragile and it's fluctuating. So basically, first, Pakistan's double game is pretty hard game to play right now, because they have to kind of provide support to everybody because of their strategy. Plus, Taliban has been searching for strategic autonomy for quite some time. And a good example of how that kind of led to confrontations and difficulties in the relation is Baradar's arrest in 2010 in Karachi, when he wanted to contact Hamid Karzai for negotiation, and that was without the agreement of the Pakistani military. So there are some link, there's some levers of influence, but it's not the all-powerful Pakistani military that can basically say to their client Taliban whatever Taliban have to do. It's much more difficult than that. Now, having said that, the fact that the Pakistani military is actively sponsoring and helping the Taliban is a lot of can actually bring a lot of difficulties for Pakistan itself. It's a very short-term vision. It's a very short-term victory for Pakistan. First, what are going to be the repercussions of that Taliban takeover of Afghanistan on the Pashtun population in Pakistan? So there's the first element here to take into account. The second, which should be really worrying in Pakistan, is that the Taliban victory in Afghanistan could actually empower and motivate other groups in Pakistan. Not directly, not because the Taliban supports those groups, but indirectly, just because, they see an Islamist fundamentalist group having reached their objective, and it can actually provide them with some kind of boost for their morale to actually further their own campaigns. So I'm thinking here about the TTP, of course, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, etc. And that can actually bring further destabilization in Pakistan, and they certainly don't need that. The third element is the threat of a civil war, of course, in Afghanistan, and the presence of ISK, which could actually destabilize the whole region, further destabilize the whole region. And finally, what need for a Pakistani godfather, or at least a Pakistani sponsor or ally, if the Islamic Emirate, is internationally recognized at some point? When we saw with the negotiations with the US, with the Taliban diplomatic offensive towards Russia, China, Iran, the EU today recognizing the political reality that is the Taliban, and concedes that maybe discussing and negotiating with the Taliban is an imperative. It's not full-fledged recognition, but still. So what need for Pakistan? What need for its military? So that could create some difficulties for Pakistan. And I'll finish on that. Can it stop? Can we basically just hope for Pakistan to stop, or push them, pressure them into stopping that sponsoring? Well, there is in Pakistan a very powerful military establishment and a very weak and corrupt civilian governance. And that would take years to actually reestablish a balance, or at least a functioning government, a functioning civilian government that has the last word over the military. That's the first thing. The second thing is that strategic culture is actually very sticky. And this sponsoring, this support of Islamic group is part of Pakistan's strategic culture. And that's going to take a lot of time to change and to evolve. And the second is that it has become an identity marker. Anti-Indianness is actually part of the Pakistani identity today. And it's not only an external factor, it's intrinsically part of the culture among the military establishment. And that is going to take a long, long time to evolve. So I'll be happy to answer any question during the Q&A. Thank you.